you know, he was a picture of staunch faith. And, many times, we get on Peter and just, I don't know how he could have done that, and I guess maybe I should say maybe I'm the only one about it. How could he do that? Or just stuff like that. And then I have to go back. He's just a regular person, regular human beings. And it kind of opens up. Think about it right here. When you're, one thing that kind of, as a retired teacher, and then, of course, in the day and age we live in, and, one of the things especially, I remember, growing up in school, and even the first few years of my career, pretty much all we had to do was, tornado drills and fire drills. The fire drills, as a teacher, you just lined up, walked outside. Or I remember the days going and you had to get the book, put it over your head, and all that stuff. And then towards the end of my career, we just had to do active shooting. And, without getting into all the discussions, society and that, it's just part of life. So I'd always put myself, and those are great. But then you sit there and go, if I start hearing gunshots coming down this hallway, what am I really going to do? And, and I've shared before, as a coach and things, trying to study how people react under stressful situations that apply to my teams. One thing I studied was the Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs, are some of the most elite special forces warriors. And I think you can say, 2-minute drill in my game compared to what a Navy SEAL goes through is two different things. It's stressful for them. So how do they remain calm? How do they do that? They have a saying that you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. And so what they're doing is being prepared. Now, obviously for us, we can't be prepared for every stressful situation, but getting back to what I said, I sat there, I make sure I kind of at least rehearse every time we have one of those drills. I would rehearse a plan. What if this goes wrong? What if the person's trying to get into my, what am I going to do? What can I grab? And it's the same way, and again, in society today, it's unfortunate. If I go to a movie theater or go to some, first thing I'm doing, where's the quickest way out? What's the quickest way out of emergency? I don't like thinking like that, because I'm a positive person, but, they say that in those type of situations that probably panic or inaction because people don't know what to do is what gets people hurt or anything. But anyway, so I found this article just real quick, and I'm going to read it. There's some kind of paraphrase. It's called Understanding the Stress Response. And a stressful situation, when we as humans are in a stressful situation, it triggers a cascade of stress hormones that produce well-orchestrated physiological changes. A stressful incident is going to make it can make the heart pound, breathing quick, muscles tense, and even beads of sweat appear. And this combination of reactions to stress is known as fight or flight response because there are several survival mechanisms enabling people and other animals to react quickly to life-threatening situations. It's a carefully orchestrated yet instantaneous sequence of hormonal changes and physiological responses that help someone fight the threat off or flee to safety. And the body can also overreact, and it says as well. But again, over the years, researchers have learned that not only how body's reactions occur, and kind of have mapped out the pathway. And what happens is the stress response, the brain, when someone confronts a dangerous situation with their eyes or ears or both, the information is sent to a part of the brain called looks like amygdala. Thank you. And the area of the brain that contributes to emotional processes and interprets the images and sounds, and it sends the stress signal to your hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus says it's kind of like a control center, and it kind of takes over. To me, that your body can do that automatically right there. It's kind of, it's pretty neat. That tells me, someone. How that was designed, that should tell you enough right there. On that, part of God, being part of God's design. I mean, just, as I said, that's just interesting to me how we do that. So I'll kind of get into that, and that's kind of as we're looking at that today, as we go through, we're going to skip around in the Gospels where it refers to, after the resurrection, Easter morning, after the sepulchre, trying to think what kind of reactions and emotions these people might be experiencing at that time as we go through that. So as we look at it, we start off right here in the first little section. We're in Matthew. I got Matthew 28 and 1, and again, what we're going to do right here is kind of, as we read this, get a picture, and because some of the Gospels, pretty much, we see some different people mentioned here. It says, in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And then in Luke 24 and 1, it says, not Luke 1, because I was like, wait a minute, now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came upon the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. And they found the stone rolled away. And then it goes on down to Luke 24 and 10. We see it was when they went to tell the disciples, it was Mary Magdalene and Joanna. Is it Joanna or Joanna? How's that pronounced? Joanna. Joanna. That's how. And then Mary, mother of James, and the other women that were with them. So we see here, then we get into Mark 16 and 1. And when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome had bought sweet spices that they might come and anoint him. And so we see some of the different people that are mentioned right here that were at the sepulchre. So we kind of see right there, who's present, things. So what was their purpose for being there? What were they doing there? There's no right or wrong answers to these, so if you got opinions, feel free. Obviously, one from the scripture says they were there with what? What had they prepared? Spices. Yeah, they were going to anoint the body with spices because again, looking at some of the research, what was the Jewish tradition about? Did they embalm? No, they did not. So they was going to anoint the body with the spices and things. Of course, obviously, that was something that would help because of decomposition, things of that nature. But let's just think about it as they arrive there, as they're approaching. What would be some of the feelings you think they would be having right there?
I would think sadness.
Just sadness, grief, obviously. Other things. As they, what would compel them to do that? Obviously we know the why with the spices, but, when they, love, good. Grief, love. Any others?
Maybe some loyalty.
Loyalty, I like that. Some type of maybe compassion or sympathy almost. So we see a wide range there with these ladies that had gone down. So from there, once that we kind of got the who and why they're there, to go to the second part right there. And again, we're just going to be skipping back and forth to all these different how the gospel describes these. And I think it's kind of I found it interesting kind of seeing how the details, for me, John 20 is kind of, I like the detail that he gets into, and it's, others, but they all each have their little, I'm trying to think of the word here, parts where, you know, they kind of give you a little insight right there to that maybe some of the others make, you know, a little extra here or there. So we get to Matthew 28, 2 and 8. So I'm going to kind of read that. Behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. And the angel answered and said unto them, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come and see the place where the Lord lay, and go quickly tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him. Lo, I have told you. And they departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and did run to bring his disciples word. And then we go from there to Luke 24 and 10 through 12. It was Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James and other women that were with them, which told these things unto the apostles. And their words seemed to them as idle tales, and they believed them not. Then arose Peter and ran unto the sepulchre, and stooping down, he beheld the linen clothes laid by themselves and departed, wondering in himself at that which was come to pass. So, a lot to look at right here. To kind of look at some of the things there, some of the points and thoughts I had. You know, when they first got there, obviously the first reaction that the women had was what? Fear. I mean, let's just think about what is taking place. Natural response, right? What does it say happened? As they're walking towards there's an earthquake. What caused the earthquake?
God.
Yeah, God. A little more specific. Or what? Well, let me say this. What's the jeez, I can't think of it. My brain's not working. In relevance to what? What appeared? What do we see appearing? Got the angel there, right? So the angel has appeared. And earthquake, and again, if you go back, were these women present at the crucifixion?
Yes.
So let's think about some of the things that was experienced there when that happened. When the crucifixion happened, if you recall,
Darkness.
there was darkness.
The veil of the temple.
The veil of the temple was ripped because of the earthquake. So again, they've already experienced this once and putting it together, and now as they're walking toward another earthquake. So you can kind of, if you put yourself in the shoes right there, like, what's going on here? You know, so fear, a natural reaction right there. And, when they get there, of course, the angel kind of, has explained to them and kind of getting into it that as we go back, let me go back to it right here. Of course, I hit the wrong button. I'm just going to blame everything on getting used to teaching from up here for right now. And it says, For the angel of the Lord had descended from heaven, came back and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. And then as we skip down right there, the angel tells them, Fear not, for I know that you seek Jesus, which was crucified. And in verse 6 of Matthew 28 says, He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. And come see the place where the Lord lay. So the angel kind of, tells them, hey, that, be careful doing that. So the angel tells them, so what do you think? So they're scared right there. They see and you can imagine, because what's the description of the angel? It says the countenance was like what? Lightning. Imagine, the brilliance of an angel of the Lord there. That's, if you walk outside and you encounter an angel of the Lord, it's going to be, I don't want to say fearful right there. Maybe it is, but it's going to be something you're going to be taken aback for sure. But as usual, we see this a lot, and it's one of those things where when people encounter, you know, the Lord or angels of the Lord, what's the first thing they say? Usually the angel answered and said unto the women, "Fear not ye." So right there tells us, obviously, the angel knew that they were afraid. And what's the first thing? So now, when you get there, if you think about it, you know, see the angel, probably you're frightened. You got the earthquake. You got this beating, angel here. And then the first thing he said, "Hey, don't be afraid." You know, that's going to calm me down a little bit. So we see there, we see that fear is present, and so they're instructed to go tell the disciples that he is risen from the dead, and behold, he goeth before you into Galilee, and there shall ye see him. Lo, I've told you. So in Luke right there, what was the disciples' reaction? What did he say? His latest brand, "Hey, Lord's risen. He's going to meet you in Galilee."
They didn't believe him.
Yeah. I mean, they're, and is that one of those again where we're sitting there going, how did they not? Because all throughout the time they were with Jesus, what was Jesus teaching them?
He would come back.
Yeah, he was telling them all this was going to happen. And again, we got to give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit, because I said, we said up here, we got the whole story, don't we? But, here they are, in it, and it's just one of those where, like, how could they miss it? But that kind of gets back into, even though it says there in Luke 24, they didn't believe it. Who winds up? A couple of disciples go to the sepulcher, and Peter, it says Peter is one of them, right? Simon Peter, and who is the other?
John.
Yeah. Oh, John. Big John's humble. John, with his writings, does it come across as humble? Yeah, I think so, because he never says I was there, or he always refers. He just, I like how John kind of handles stuff there. So they go, and as we see right there, as we go, and they run to it, and I like it, because as they get there, John's the first one there, and he stops at the entrance. But old Peter, what does he do? He just goes right in it. That's Peter in a nutshell right there. He gonna, if there's a door in the wall, he might run through the wall instead of go through the door. But that kind of gives Peter's, shows Peter's passion out there. So how are there, and it kind of describes it right there that when they see this. Is there much detail on what Peter and John's reaction was? What do y'all think? Let's see what else. Let's see if there's, I got those two. Does it describe much of an emotional reaction at all? It just says that rose Peter ran down, stooping down behind the linen clothes laid by themselves, and departed, wondering himself at that which was come to pass. So it doesn't really get into why, like if they had a wow moment, it's more of, they're like, what's going on? They're trying to, you can almost see that maybe the wheels are turning there. What's going on here? Maybe he's going to connect everything to what Jesus was teaching. So we see that. So from that point, there's a couple of things here. As we compare, let's go back 3 days before this to the day of the crucifixion. what was the disciples' reactions compared to the women that we've been speaking here, that we've been talking about on that day? Were there any disciples that witnessed the crucifixion itself? How many? All of them?
No, John.
Yeah, John did. That's where from what I saw, John did. Peter, the rest of them, you know, what did they do? They kind of went hid. They kind of what? Mary was there. So we see again, we kind of you know, there's fear, there's terror. You know, you got to, you know, and it kind of gets into some of those things there, how the reaction, and then as I studied this, it kind of gets us. There was one of the commentators, this question that he put out there. You know, why were the women the first one to go to the tomb? Why not the disciples? No right or wrong answer here. You know, he didn't propose one. It's just a question for God.
I think there was probably some tradition involved that was traditionally their role to do
Okay.
that kind of thing.
And again, that's one of those things, having that background, because I didn't know that, I didn't see that. Tradition. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, they probably knew there was a guard placed there.
Okay.
They were in fear for their life already.
We're from the disciples' point of view, yeah. So they probably felt like, I mean, we're kind of exiled or on the run right here a little bit. So maybe it might have been safer. Any other thoughts? And again, there's no right or wrong here. It's just these are things that a lot of my questions are the things that I think about when I'm like that, and I don't have any answers. I want input. You know, and again, I think you know, other things where worked out. I think all those are good responses. You know, so anyone here ever go down the rabbit hole on stuff and they're researching stuff? They kind of go down, they get to here, and all of a sudden they're totally off the main. Well, down that right. So, you know, so I don't know if it's a mistake, but why women first at the sepulcher? You know, and there's some interesting responses there. Like I said, I think probably, you know, tradition, disciples fearing for themselves right there. If you think about it, you know, why, and again, these are all, I'm not saying these are true, but I'm just saying these are different things that people offer to, because I like to think. You know, and if you think about it right there, what was one of the things, why did the elders have a guard ask for the guards to be posted there?
So they wouldn't steal his body and claim his resurrection.
Yeah, so right there, so they wouldn't steal his body, claim his resurrection. Is that the first disinformation campaign, perhaps? Because we're going to see later on that elders actually going to, you know, kind of try to use that stuff. So if perhaps that's what that one commentator said, if the disciples were the first to show up, hey, he's not here, then, you know, felt like that could give the ammunition to them, to the elders, to say, you know, they just so with it being the women, perhaps it was, you know, to dispel that theory of them. You know, some other people got really deep into it. I didn't like that, you know, so, you know, kind of getting it, you know, there's just different stuff. But anyway, I think, you know, as we get into it, it's all said and done, no matter what, about Mary and these women, you could describe them, they were pretty faithful people, weren't they? Pretty faithful people. And and then the men right there, like I said, again, the disciples, because I'm one of those, I'd be, you know, just on the service, I probably owe the disciples apology when I get to heaven and meet them one day, because I thought some things about you, and then I realized if I put myself in the shoes, I can kind of see now, I just thought about it, why you react that way. So anyway, say that, and again, that kind of gets, I always have to go back. These are that, and that one thing that does do, it does give me comfort. Again, just fallible human beings, just like I am. Sinners, needing redemption, just like all of us humans. So let's go to John 20 now. John 21, John chapter 20 is kind of my favorite, I don't want to say rendition. I'm trying to kind of work because I know it's true, but it's just an account, I guess, is what we say of this. So again, it starts out and as in verse 2 right there as we go, or excuse me, I'll start at verse 1. It's very similar opening. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early when it was yet dark unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and said unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid it. So Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter, and came first to the sepulchre. And he, stooping down, looked in, and saw the linen clothes lying, yet went not he in. Then cometh Simon Peter following, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and a napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Then went in also the other disciple, which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. For as yet they knew not the scripture, that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went away again unto their home. So we see, other things there, but, I'm trying to put my place there. You think about it, and it kind of refers to, when the women were there, they started out with fear. They're told, so as they're running to tell the disciples here, now from reactions and emotions and things of that nature, what's changing now, you think? Or if maybe they're still scared, I don't know. What would be a change right there? Perhaps, because you think about it, when they woke up that morning and they were to head over there, we said, and they found the angels, so they had fear, terror, we had grief, love, maybe even, like I said, they were down. It was just, so now all of a sudden, after all these events, they're told to go run and tell the disciples that Christ is indeed risen. What's going on? What do you think now? Excitement. Hope. And probably you got joy in it, kind of, don't you? And it's probably one of those things where they're kind of, wait a minute, so you kind of see how things, I can almost see them how they turn, and they just immediately how they're running. I don't know. And for me, as I read, this is one of those like John 20, especially John 21. I'll get into in a second. But I can feel the emotion. These are the parts of it that really move me. When you can feel this, just hanging on to that emotion right there. So again, we see right here, towards the end in verses 8, 9, 10, etc., do we see much of an account of any type of emotional reaction as far as for John or Peter right here? They ran. So they know that, all right, something's going on here. They're kind of, I think they're probably still trying to figure it out. They're trying, so I can't come up with a word here, but it's almost, they're almost, to me, it feel like they're trying to put, like I said, something happened right there, Frida gets mad at me, or upset, I don't say mad, she gets frustrated at me, something that, I'm sitting there, I'm trying to process what's going on right there, what's happening, and I'm just kidding. You know what you're talking about, because you're like, give me a chance here. That's probably one of those moments right there. I don't know. I can't get into Peter. I can see John. John seems like Peter's more of a, take the bull by the horns type guy. But his, it seems like with his person. John seems a little bit more. He might be a little more analytical. Don't know. I mean, like I said, but anyway, still, it's not. We don't. You can see here. I think between Mary and the disciples right here again, they're still trying to figure out right here. So as we go through 11 through 6, as we go through now, as we continue in John, and again, to me, very before you can feel this here. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping, and as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre and could see 2 angels in white sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. And they said unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? She said unto them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing, and knew not that it was Jesus. Jesus said unto her, Woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? She, supposing him to be a gardener, saith unto him, Sir, if thou have borne him hence, tell me where thou hast laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said unto her, Mary. She turned herself and said unto him, Rabboni, which is to say, Master. And Jesus said unto her, Touch me not, for I have not ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say unto them, I ascend unto my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God. So right there, and again, you see Mary's still. Her reactions, her emotions. What is she at the first part right there? When they ask her why is she weeping? How would you describe that response?
She's sad.
You got sadness, maybe even a little despair, and again. As she told him, hey, she simply, wanted to know where Jesus' body was. And I kind of gets down there when Jesus speaks to her. And again, it gets back to, why, how could she not recognize Jesus? You better be careful today. I remember moving this back because it's about the second time I've stepped up. How could she not? Why did I'm not condoning her or I'm not whatever criticizing. What would keep her from recognizing Jesus right there?
She wasn't expecting to see him, for starters.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. Like I said, that kind of makes me it's like one of those things. Like first of all, and this made me feel better when I was working at Arkansas State because Coach Jones, I'm terrible with names. He would always say, if you bring a recruit, you always when you introduce to him, make sure you give his name. Because he's like terrible. I'm saying, I'll see people. It's like coaches, for example. If I see a coach at a sporting event where I expect to see him, I recognize him. If I was to see him in the mall or somewhere, you know what I'm talking about right there where you see him. It's like if you don't expect him, I don't know, maybe that's the emotion there. But she didn't recognize him at first, and then for me, even though Jesus said in one word right there, to me, verse 16, that's very powerful for me. Mary. And then once he spoke, she recognized it. And then, you can just, she turns, and she has that moment of recognition. And, of course, Jesus tells her not to touch it, for he had ascended to the Father right there. So now at that point, you strive, from her disappointment or whatever, or she's going from one to the other now. Because now at this point, all those other, as we said, we mentioned it, she knows now, don't she? She knows. And now, it goes on right there as it continues on. It says, Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord, that he had spoken these things unto her. So now, and then that's the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in the midst. And so, and said unto them, peace be unto you. So at that point now, we've looked at, and again, I'm running way short on time right here, but we've looked at some of the different reactions, some of the emotions, and if we put ourselves, as we have pointed out, we kind of put ourselves into their situations. Now it's a little bit more, maybe I have a little bit more understanding why maybe they reacted like they did. The fifth section right here, I had the Roman soldiers, when it goes back, if you read Matthew 28:4, when the angel appeared, it literally caused the guards to do what? It caused them to faint. So they were, I think, and that's what I wrote down here, and they went and kind of told, after that, they went and told the elders, and I want to hit that real quick. If I don't have time, then we just run out of time, but let's go to the elders that ordered Jesus. You think about it, they probably felt like they just had a pretty good weekend working. They kind of handled the problem, and then, the soldiers will come up there and they tell them, now, and Jesus' body's gone. So as we look at it right here, as we look at Matthew 28:11 through 15, it says, now when they were going, behold, some of the watch came and sit and showed them to the chief priests all the things that were done. And when they were assembled with the elders and had taken counsel, they gave large money unto the soldiers, saying, say ye, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we slept. So at that point, the elders' response, as I said, that kind of gets us what I said, the first disinformation campaign, perhaps. Hey, just tell everybody the disciples came and stole it while we slept. And then, of course, the question is, that's not a very good thing, because how would they know they came and got them if they were asleep? So it's kind of some of those things there. So I just kind of put that down to show maybe a different type of fear. The soldiers and the elders started having a different type of fear than, what women had. So, and then on the back right here, and this is perhaps, to me, John 21. I love, and again, I guess I love everything in the Bible. But I love this account right here when it says, after these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and on this wise showed himself, he himself. And the disciples were fishing right there, and as we go right there, verse 4, it says, but when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. And Jesus said unto him, children, have you any meat? And they answered no. And he said, cast the nets, because they fished all night and hadn't caught anything. Cast the nets on the right side of the ship, and you shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. The nets are so heavy because they had so much fish in them. Therefore the disciple whom Jesus loved said unto Peter, it is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard it, that it was the Lord, he girded his fisher's coat on him, and did cast himself into the sea. And the disciples came in the little ship, dragging the net to fish. So what I imagine right there is they're fishing right there, and then you see Peter, and as soon as they recognize it, what was Peter's reaction? He immediately jumped in and swam to them right there. And so now, like I said, that's just a total, it's like, when John, the disciple that Jesus loved, John, hey, that's Jesus. What does Peter do? And to me, just no hesitation right there to go. And like I said, to me, that's the way I picture. I picture in my mind him just jumping right there and like I said, immediately swimming to going to be with the Savior. And that's moving me. Because at the end of the day, as much as Peter, and that's what I get, because you know, I sat there and kicked myself. I need to be better. I need to do better in my walk. I need to do better with this. You know, kicking myself and, you know, Satan gets after, yeah, you know, you're really a Christian, you know, you're doing all this. But, you know, well, Peter right there, Peter died 3 times, and he's a disciple. And, but just seeing right there that, you know, I wonder what Jesus thought when he saw Peter do that once he recognized it. See, what a beautiful moment, I think. So, you know, the range of emotions, you know, we see some different ranges of emotions. We start off with fear, we start off with, you know, terror, perhaps anger, compassion, and we see it goes all the way through joy. And just some of the conclusion here, and I'll get this finished up right here, and I apologize for going, but are these not similar reactions that we feel as we go through our walk days in Christ? Are at times we have fear, perhaps, you know, terror, but at the end of the day, once we get our eyes, once we saw Mary, when she got her eyes on Jesus and recognized who it was, what was her emotion? It was joy. What was Peter's reaction when he jumped in? It had to be joy. And I think that's the thing. Hopefully, you know, if I can just keep it, you know, when I'm in those situations, but it's kind of, if I can get my mind back on, get my eyes back on Jesus, those emotions turn into joy. So, and then finally, last there, you know, why do you think we kind of get on this? Those who were close to Jesus didn't recognize him at first. You know, just some things there. But you know, like I said, you know, as we celebrate this morning, the risen Savior, just like I said, that's just kind of what I just want. What were some of the emotions these people that had experienced this were going through? It turns out that regular people like us too, and hopefully. You know, for me personally, you know, I get hope. So, again, I know I did a lot of talking here, but again, I'm thankful that we're here.
Amen.
And like I said, we just keep on going, just going to keep getting better and better. You see spots in the paint, essentially, that's my fault. So, part of us not ready to be painted. That's us. You know, if you're OCD like me and stuff, that's my but yeah, good job with the colors, and like I said, it's exciting to kind of watch it really start. You see it last week, seeing it, you know, getting ready to go. So with the morning, come on in, guys. Y'all good? We'll close with a word of prayer. Lord, again, we're thankful for this day. We're really thankful for this day, Lord. Lord, we're thankful we serve a risen Savior, Lord. And Lord, as we honor and celebrate that today, Lord, just keep us, keep our minds on you, Lord, as we talked about in the lessons, you know, the joy that we can experience when our eyes and our focus is on you, Lord. Lord, we know you're with us. We're thankful for that. Lord, just be with us and go through this service, Lord. Lord, keep